Sushruta for NEET is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
Hello students, good morning. So we are going to study about alkaline earth metals. We have studied previously alkali metals and their chemistry in great details. Now we are going to study about alkaline earth metals, and as I have discussed earlier, alkaline earth metals are group 2 metals, and particularly there are 6 elements in that group 2. Group 2 means, first group and second group in the periodic table. Group 2 means the second group in the periodic table. And these elements are beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, and barium and radium. Radium is radioactive, so usually its chemistry is not in our syllabus. So if you look at the electronic configuration of this alkaline earth metal, so what we know, the group 2, and as we know, its general electronic configuration will be NH2, means the electronic configuration of one noble gas and then NH2. And how we know this 1s2, 2s2 for the beryllium, and 1s2 we know it's a helium. So electronic configuration of helium and 2s2. Then magnesium, what we know, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6. This up to here, it is the electronic configuration of neon. So one can write neon, then 3s2. So what is with 2s2, 3s2? Similarly, for the calcium, we'll get the outermost cell electronic configuration as 4s2, then 5s2. So what we call its electronic configuration is electronic configuration of one noble gas and NH2. So N could be, N is the number of cells, or maybe in the periodic table you can consider it as a period number. And so it's electronic configuration that we know. And what we know, if you look at the nearest noble gas, its number of electron would be more. It has two electrons more than the nearest inert gas or the noble gas, and that is what its electronic configuration is NH2. So like beryllium, as I said, and strontium, you see strontium, it is up to 3D here. This is krypton. So after electronic configuration of krypton, then 5s2 in the case of calcium, it's argon. 4s2 in the case of barium, it is xenon, then 6s2 up to here. And see here it is written. So xenon 6s2, or you can write entire thing up to 5p6, 6s2 according to Aufbau's principle, that we know how can one write the electronic configuration. If you know the atomic number, then you can easily write electronic configuration as well. And so barium, it's how much it is? It's a 35, 37. Sorry, it's barium. It's xenon is 54. So 54 plus 2 is 56. So barium, its atomic number is 50. Radon, then we can go after radium. So it is radon. Sorry, it's a mistake here. It's it's radium, and after radon, Rn, it is 7s2. So that we can write. If you look at the abundance, there is abundance on the, and they are very highly reactive. And why they are highly reactive? Because they have only 2 electrons. They can lose these electrons very easily, and because of that, they have very high electropositive character. Because of these electropositive characters, and we know on Earth we do have a lot of non-metals, particularly oxygen. The abundance of oxygen is quite high, and also carbon dioxide is there, and many other non-metals like silicon and other things are there. So they form their compounds very easily with all these non-metals, and so these metals are usually found on Earth in the form of their compounds. They are not found as a pure metals on the Earth crust or anywhere on the Earth. So they're particularly whatever their compounds, they are found in these compounds as their abundance is more, and so these compounds are called their ore. Particularly beryllium, the beryllium is, it's beryl is the ore, and it's a phenakite. There are 2 ores that we get beryllium from, and so it's a beryl is 3BeO. It's a barium oxide, aluminum oxide, and SiO2, 6SiO2. So this is actually the molecular formula of beryl, which is an ore of beryllium. And then phenakite is beryllium silicate. It's a BeSiO4. So Be, you can see here beryllium. And then for the magnesium, there are particularly 4 ores from which magnesium is extracted. And so it's a magnesite. Magnesite is nothing but it's a magnesium carbonate. And as I said, so many salts are there. They are found in the form of carbonate. So this is magnesite, it's a magnesium carbonate. Dolomite is a calcium carbonate, and magnesium carbonate is a kind of double salt. So calcium carbonate and magnesium carbonate, one can say it's a kind of mixture. Although they are found, they have their unique crystal structure that which is different than the crystal of calcium carbonate and magnesium carbonate. So this is a dolomite. And then epsomite is a magnesium sulfate, and it also has 7 water as a water of crystallization in the crystal form. So it's epsomite. Carnellite is the magnesium chloride, and the potassium chloride, it's also a double salt, and 6 water as a water of hydration or water of crystallization. Sorry. So these are 4 particular O's for the magnesium and the calciums, and you can also see how they appear. So this is a beryllium, pure beryllium. It looks like this. Magnesium, it's a, you can see here, it's a quite crazy and it's more whitish than the beryllium. And the calcium, it's a, you can see the luster is now more in the calcium, so metallic character is increasing. So limestone, we can get calcium from the limestone. Limestone, we know it's a calcium carbonate or some marble. And then gypsum also contains calcium, and it's a gypsum formula is calcium. It's a calcium sulfate and 2 water of crystallization. So calcium sulfate, 2 water is gypsum, and anhydrite is calcium sulfate, simple calcium sulfate, no water of crystallization. And fluorapatite is apatite. Usually it's this kind of formation also happens in our teeth enamel. So this is a formation of fluorine. So it's calcium fluorophosphate. It's a called calcium fluorophosphate, and this is calcium 5, and you can see here 3 valences. All these compounds are electrically neutral, so that way you should also find out what would be the charges on that and how they are neutral. This is why I'm saying, because all the compounds, naturally alkali compounds, are always going to be electrically neutral. This is because the charged compound species, usually if they are not in the crystal form, they form lattice. If they are not forming lattice, usually their proper existence, even if they are forming lattice and all the rocks, all the everything, if they get separated, you are breaking them, all the parts usually are, until unless they are ionized from outside, they are always electrically neutral. Then the strontium, there are 2 prominent ores of strontium are celestine, which is strontium sulfate, and strontianate. Strontianate is strontium carbonate, and strontianate and celestine. And for the barium is the first element. Barium, it's a berylate. This is barium sulfate, and witherite. This is a barium carbonate. Witherite and berylates are 2 prominent ores of barium, from which barium is usually extracted, is purified. So extraction of alkaline earth metals usually from their ores. So how do we do? The beryllium and magnesium are obtained by reducing their oxides. And so barium oxide, you see, usually one can, if the barium oxide is there, or not only from their ore, this you can see here, it's a barium oxide in this ore forms. So barium oxide, on how using it, reducing it with the carbon, is the using coke or the graphite. What you get, it's a carbon and reacts with the oxygen. This oxygen, it's a kind of single displacement reaction. So carbon reacts with this oxygen, becomes carbon monoxide, and beryllium is now available. Similarly, magnesium oxide reacts with carbon, it forms magnesium plus carbon monoxide. This is also a single displacement reaction. The extraction of alkaline earth metals can also be made by reduction of their oxides by alkali metals or by electrolyzing their fused salts. And how the electrolyzing fused salts, one can get the pure metal that we have seen for the alkali metals. So what do? You take these proper ores, you fuse them, and fuse them means you heat them at a very high temperature so that they will melt, and this molten salt and molten ores that you can use in the electrolytic cell, and where the metal will be electroplated at the cathode, and from there one can remove it and take out, and so that one can get the alkali metals and extract the alkali metals from their ore using this called electrolytic process, employing fused salts. Fused salts means the molten salts. Coming to the properties of the alkaline earth metals, they are all grayish white. They are light. Usually light means they're one saying means their density is compared with respect to other metals. So they are comparatively light, but they are heavier than the alkali metals, and they are malleable usually because they are metals. They are ductile metals with metallic luster. So usually beryllium is not there. It's a brittle, so it's brittle in nature. But other than all the metals are they have malleable and ductility, and they have metallic lusters, and that you can see from them. You can have some kind of luster. There is metallic luster. We call it this luster is because of the excitation of electrons in the visible light, and that we have seen how the metallic bonding, because of the metallic bonding that it has, we have explained, we have studied earlier, and this luster is because of the electrons gets excited, they come back and emitting electrons in the visible light, and that kind of luster, the light that we see, and so it means that it is shiny. So this kind of lusters all the metals has. So beryllium and magnesium appear to somewhat grayish, and they all these compounds they are electrical and thermal. They have high electrical and thermal conductivity. These are fairly soft, and why they are soft? Because their metallic bonding is not so strong. Although it is stronger than the alkali metals, so they are harder than alkali metals, but they are softer than other metals. And why they are softer than other metals? Because if the bonding between different atoms is stronger, so it will be difficult to depart them and to remove them from each other, to break this bonding. Because once you are cutting somewhere, cutting means what are you doing? You are breaking the bond between two metals which are joined together at that point. And so because all these metals has 2 electrons in their outermost shell, and now 2 electrons are now interacting with divalent cation, and divalent cation having 2 positive charge plus 2 charge, and so that bonding is comparatively stronger than the alkali metals, because alkali metals involve only 1 electron, and so the metallic bonding is stronger in the case of alkaline earth metals in comparison to alkali metals. So they are harder than alkali metals, but if you compare their metallic bonding with the 3D metals or the transition metals or maybe the inner transition metals, so they are comparatively much softer. So their hardness progressively decreases, and by their hardness also decreases down the group with the increase in metallic character. Although you see the increase in metallic character or electropositive character, their hardness decreases. And what I am saying, the metallic bonding is, if the metallic bonding is stronger, they will be harder. The issue here is that actually the reason is, as we go down the group, so what is the electropositive character? Tendency to lose electrons. And tendency to lose electrons, because of the increase in atomic radius, as we have seen this in the periodic properties, that proper chapter in this group as well. Almost all the groups, usually the atomic radii increase, and because of the increase in atomic radii, the ionization potential decreases, and ionization potential decreases, tendency to lose electrons increases. So tendency to lose electrons, it increases down the groups. Strontium, there will be barium. So what happens, because tendency of losing electrons increases, so the electropositive character or metallic character increases. But the thing is, but with this losing, and now but with the increase in the size, what happens, the distance between the electron and this metal cation, its nucleus, increases, and because of the increase in the distance between them, the metallic bonding, the strength of metallic bonding also decreases. So since the metallic bonding, its strength decreases down the group because the atomic radii increases, so the metallic bonding weakens, and metallic bonding weakens, so the elements become softer as we go down the group. And similarly, but the metallic character means the electron donation tendency increases because of the same reason, the atomic radii increases. Although similarly with the atomic radii, the ionic radii also increases in the same trend, and you can see that in the picometer size 1.1, sorry, 2, so not picometers, angstrom, so 1.1 to 1.6, and so it is increasing in this fashion. And similarly you can see for the divalent cation as well. So their cations, this are how it is, in angstrom, their atomic radii is increasing as we go down the group, and the atomic radii and ionic radii both increases down the group because the number of cells increases, that we know. The metallic melting and boiling points of these metals also are higher than the corresponding alkali metals. And why they are higher? Because as I said, simply the corresponding with respect to corresponding alkali metals of the same period, they have a stronger metallic bonding, so their melting and boiling point would be higher. However, in the case of the same group elements, we do not find any clear trend, and this trend is not systematic because of the many other reasons. So that we will see the values, how this value changes a bit later. So they are strongly electropositive in nature, and why they are electropositive in nature? Because of their electrons are loosely bound. And why they are loosely bound? Because the effective nuclear charge is less, and after the alkali metal is least in the same period. So they are electropositive in nature, and the electropositive character increases down the group from beryllium to strontium that I have discussed earlier. So now atomic radii I have already explained. So the atomic radii as well as ionic radii of the members of the family are smaller than the corresponding members of alkali metals. So in comparison to alkali metals, they are smaller. And why they are smaller? Because we know the effect as we go down, go from left to right in a period, atomic radii decreases. This is one trend that we have seen. And why it is decreases? This is because the effective nuclear charge increases as we go from left to right into a period. So effective nuclear charge increases, so the attraction of nucleus on the electron's outermost shell increases, and because of that increased interaction or attraction, the cells gets contracted a bit, and because of this contraction, what happens? The atomic radii of the alkaline earth metals are smaller than the corresponding alkali metals of the same period. And this is because the alkaline earth metals possess a higher nuclear charge than alkali metals, which more effectively pulls the orbit electrons toward the nucleus, causing so same thing that I have explained in a better way. So density, if you look at the density, their density decreases slightly from slightly up to calcium. So from up to calcium, its density decreases, and then after calcium, it increases. So the alkaline earth metals are denser, and their comparison is usually done with the alkali metals. So they are denser. And why they are denser? Because you see their size is smaller and the mass is more. Mass is increased because if you just compare beryllium with the lithium, the mass number is 7 and beryllium it is 9. So 7 to 9 mass number increased, and its size is decreased. So mass has increased and size has decreased, and density is mass divided by volume. So that is why the density is more than that of the alkali metals, corresponding alkali metals of the same period. And the higher density of alkaline earth metals is due to their smaller atomic size and the strong intermetallic bonds. And this way, so how the size also one can compare it with in terms of the strong metallic bonds, and metallic bond is stronger means this nuclei or the two atoms will be closer to each other, so their lattice will be more compact, and more compact means means the volume will be less of the particular lattice for which you will calculate the density, because you will take one particularly, suppose one rock or one slab, one crystal we are taking, we can cut it, we can calculate its volume, and then we can calculate its estimate its mass as well, measure its mass, and then we can calculate density by simply mass divided by volume. So that's why so in that crystal, when that block, what we see, there will be metallic bonding between different atoms. So the metallic bonding, since it is stronger in the case of alkaline earth metals, so their density is more than that of the alkali metals. Now looking at the ionization enthalpy. So ionization enthalpy, usually we look at the trend, and so ionization enthalpy with respect to the alkali metals, their ionization enthalpies are more. And why it is more? Because their size is smaller, so atomic radius is smaller, and atomic radius is smaller, and the electrons are now more attracted, or they have a stronger bonding with the nucleus, a stronger attraction with the nucleus. So pull them electron out or remove those electrons. What you have to do, you have to provide more energy to remove them, and that is why their ionization enthalpy or electron removal enthalpy is more than that of the alkali metals. So the alkaline earth metals, owing to their large size of atoms, have fairly low values of ionization energies, and this we are comparing with respect to all the other elements of the periodic table other than the alkali metals. So other than the alkali metals, if you compare the atomic radius of this alkaline earth metals is larger than the other elements of the periodic table usually in the same period, and so they have comparatively lower ionization potential. However, they have higher ionization potential in comparison to that of the alkali metals, and because they are smaller, their atomic radius is smaller than the alkali metals. And the second ionization, however, this is for the first ionization enthalpy. However, if you compare the second ionization enthalpy with that of the alkali metals, what happens? The alkali metals, once we remove one electron, alkali metals get the electronic configuration of nearest noble gas. So now the outermost shell in the monocation of the alkali metals, the outermost shell electrons usually contains 8 electrons. Outermost shell usually contains 8 electrons. Other than that of the lithium, which contains 2 electrons, and the electronic configuration of helium we get. So the thing is, now removal of those electrons becomes difficult from the monocation, because now this of the nearest noble gas configuration. However, in the case of alkaline earth metals, if you remove only one electron, then removal of the second electron is difficult in comparison to the first electron. So the second ionization potential will be more than that of the first ionization potential, because you are removing electron from a monocation. However, if you compare that the second ionization potential with the alkali metals, it is much lower in the value than that second ionization potential of alkali metals, because in the alkali metal monocations, now we have to remove electrons from a kind of noble gas electronic configuration that is more difficult. And so the second ionization potential of alkali metals are usually lower than that of alkaline. So alkaline earth metals are lower than that of the alkali metals. But and if you look at the trend in the first ionization potential of the alkaline earth metals, what we see, it's decreases down the group, and how the trend that we can see here in this graph, it is decreasing. And why it is decreasing, these values you can see in the positive, because this energy, this enthalpy we have to provide, because removing those electrons are not that easy, because these electrons are under the influence of nucleus. They are attracted by the nucleus. So to break that attraction, we have to provide that much energy by which it is attracted by the nucleus. So with that much potential energy, we have to provide in the form of heat. So you can see the beryllium, its ionization potential is maximum, and this is because its size is smallest and the effective nuclear charge in the case of beryllium is most, it's the highest, and so its effective nuclear charge decreases. Attraction of electron, attraction experienced by electron due to the nucleus decreases, and because of that decrease in the attraction of the nucleus, we see the ionization potential of alkaline earth metals decreasing. And it decreasing, and up to the barium that we see it decreases, and the radon is not shown here. It's because it's a radioactive nature. And if you compare the first ionization potential with that of the alkali metals, you can see on the similar scale, although it's not exactly same. So because here, if you the similar scale, you see here the alkali metals ionization potential is quite low. So it's around 500. It starts around 500 and goes here up to 370. And the case of alkali metals, you see the lowest ionization potential is for the barium is equivalent to the ionization potential of the lithium, which is the highest in the case of alkali metals. So the ionization potential, it decreases. These values are in the kilocalorie per mole. So now coming to the oxidation state, and the oxidation state, as we have seen in the redox chemistry, the oxidation state of alkaline earth metals is usually 2, because they readily remove 2 electrons. It is, and so they show usually 2 positive charge. So they form divalent cations. Divalent cations, though these cations are usually monoatomic, but they have divalency. They have 2 positive charge on them. So the ionization energy, first ionization energy of these metals is lower than that of the second ionization energy, and for that matter, it is generally true for all the elements. The second ionization energy is always more than that of the first ionization energy. It means we need to provide more energy to remove second electron than the energy required to remove first electron. So the higher value of second ionization energy is counterbalanced by high degree of hydration of the M2 plus ions. So once you are removing this, means what you are doing usually, so M2 plus ions, the divalent cations will form, and these divalent cations, they will not be in the gaseous forms. Usually this ionization happens when either this M2 plus ions will be interacting with the anions, and so it has 2 plus charge, so its attraction with the anions will be stronger, or size will be smaller, or if it is in the water, so its hydration energy will be more, because it will more strongly interact with the water molecules and the oxygen of water. It interacts with the oxygen of water to divalent cations. So the hydration energy that it gets by removal of one extra electron after the first electron, the second electron, that overcompensates the energy required for the removal of the second electron, means the overcompensates the second ionization potential. So these ions, these metals are usually found in the divalent form, or the as a dication or the M2 plus ions. So divalent cation of these metals possess noble gas or a stable configuration. A noble gas, so that once they get removed 2 electrons, so these divalent cations, they get the nearest noble gas configuration, electronic configuration. So now they are relatively stable, and now removing any further electrons will be much difficult, because for them all the orbitals are completely filled, and if the orbitals are completely filled, we see because of the exchange and other energy correlation energies, so exchange energy, higher exchange energy, usually these configurations are energetically stable. So the formation of divalent cation lattice leads to evolution of energy due to a strong lattice structure of divalent cation. So in the case if the lattice formation is happening, not the hydration, it is not in the solution for the head in the water, so what will happen? So the anions will be there and it will form lattice. So in the that lattice, its attraction with the anion will also be stronger because of the double positive charge, and in that case, whatever the energy, that extra energy that is required for the ionization, it overcompensates as well in this case. So some of the properties of these alkaline earth metals that we see, the melting point, as a melting point, you see it's the highest for the beryllium, and then the magnesium is 650 only degree centigrade, and then you see it is increasing for the calcium, then again decreases, then decreases further. So up to what we see, up to strontium, we do not see any, up to calcium, we do not see any clear trend. However, after the calcium, what we see, it's a melting point decreases down the groove. In the case of the boiling point, what we see, boiling point is 2471 degrees centigrade for the beryllium, and then it decreases considerably for the magnesium, and then from the magnesium to calcium it increases, then calcium to strontium it decreases, then strontium to barium it increases, then decreases. So we do not see any trend in this case, the case of boiling point. So that is why we do not get any clear trend between in melting and boiling points for these alkali metals. Melting point, at least we get certain trend from the calcium to radium. However, in the boiling point, we do not get any clear trend, and this is for the various regions. That is not important for us to understand at this moment. At this juncture, actually, at your syllabus, it is not important for you to understand. So the density, if you look at the density, you see it is decreasing. So from beryllium, then magnesium, then you see the calcium, and from the calcium, after the calcium, density also increases. So it first decreases up to the calcium, and then from the calcium to radium it increases. These values you can see in the gram per ml or gram cc, and if you look at this density in comparison to that of the water, and that we call a specific gravity. So what does it mean? So value is, for water it is about 1 gram per centimeter cube. So all these metals are heavier than water, so they will actually be submerged into the water. If you compare these densities with the alkali metals, so what do we see? The densities of alkali metals, some of the alkali metals, the lithium, sodium and potassium, their densities are is less than that of water. So if you put them into the water, they will be floating on the water. And so because at that we get from the specific gravity, is what? A density of a particular substance divided by density of a reference substance, and reference substance we can consider water at 4 degrees centigrade, and the value that we get, we call it a specific gravity. And this specific gravity value in comparison to water tells us, it will guide us to determine whether a particular substance will be floating on water, or it will be submerged into water, it will be dipped into the water. So if density, the relative specific gravity is more than 1, it means the density of the particular substance is more than water, so it will go inside the water, it will dip inside, and if it is less than 1, so that is what this density is 0.5. For lithium is 0.534 gram per ml, and for water it is 1 gram per ml. So it will be the specific gravity of lithium will be 0.534 around. So 0.53 one can consider. So it will be actually floating on water. So not only that, sodium also, it will not be totally, it will somehow like slightly, it will be floating also on the water, it will not be on the bottom, and the potassium also. However, we do not do this because these metals react vigorously with sodium and potassium vigorously with water, and lithium also react very strongly with the water. And so we do not keep these substances into the water, we could keep them in the kerosene, and lithium even we do not keep in the kerosene because its density is even less than that of the kerosene. So we wrap it in by the paraffin, and so that is why paraffin wax, and that is how it is kept. So anyway, the density, if you look at the density of density of alkaline earth metals are more than the density of alkali metals, and this is why it is, because we have explained it, because of their size is a smaller, atomic size is smaller, and even the bonding is stronger. So the volume of a crystal will be stronger, the compact, their close packing in this case, and also their mass is more than that of the alkali metals, corresponding alkali metals of the same period. Why? Because we can compare only same period elements, because otherwise we see there is a drastic change in the mass and radius if you go compare two elements of the different period of the two different groups. So that's why we compare one by one in the same period elements, just adjacent elements. And so the first ionization potential we see it's also very high in comparison to the alkali metals, and these values we can just compare here from these values. So alkali metals is quite low in comparison to alkaline earth metals. Percentage abundance, if you look at on the earth, you see beryllium is the abundance is least, and then the radium is also it's a very trace in amount, and other metals do have quite good abundance, like magnesium and calcium. Calcium it is there in the highest amount among all the alkaline earth metals. So calcium presence is highest in the magnesium, and the other elements also exist there on the earth, and that is why they are called earth metals, alkaline earth metals. So atomic radius, if you look at, there are also some earth metals, rare earth metals, lanthanides, or called all the lanthanides elements are called rare earth metals. Their existence is very less, and they are found on the earth, so they are called the rare earth metals. And so the atomic radius you can see in the picometer. You can convert this picometer into the angstrom if you want. So this picometer, this is also in picometer, the ionic radius, and I can see atomic radius and ionic radius, how it is varying of the M2 plus ion. And so it is actually increasing as we go down the group. It is increasing continuously as we go down the group, and this is what we see. Because of this increase in the ionic radius, we see the ionization potential and other properties are varying. The higher heat of hydration of divalent cation accounts for the divalent ions of these metals in this solution state. So what we see, if the divalent cations is formed, so it is interaction with the water will increase, and so the hydration energy will be more. Now let us look into the characteristic flame color. Characteristic flame color we have also seen for the alkali metals, and there we have seen almost all the alkali metals, they give characteristic flame color. And here in the case of alkaline earth metals, we see the beryllium and magnesium, they do not show any flame color. Only the calcium, strontium, barium, and radon, if you want, so radium, it also shows flame colors usually. But beryllium and magnesium, they do not show flame color. They do not show any characteristic flame. And why it is? Because their electrons are so tightly bound, and their excitation require energy not in the visible range. This energy requirement is in the ultraviolet range, and so ultraviolet range, even the electron gets that energy and comes back to the ground state. What we see, we will not see that energy because it is in the ultraviolet region. We can perceive only the region in the visible light in the visible range. And so the alkaline earth metals and their salts imparts a characteristic color to flame, except beryllium and magnesium. So why characteristic flame color of the flame means, if you burn their salts or even these metals, what you see, this particular color flame, it appears above the flame, and that we call the characteristic flame color. So in the flame And but this flame test is not given by the, it's also, this is called flame test with beryllium and magnesium. In the flame, the electrons, and this test is the qualitative test, is not quantitative test. Just by comparing some flame test, one can consider these metals or metal cations, whether they present in the salt. It might be this particular cation, and later on we do confirmatory tests to confirm whether this particular cation that we have guessed because of this qualitative flame test, whether that is right or not. So in the flame, electrons are excited to higher energy levels, and when they drop back to the ground state, energy is emitted in the form of visible light. And if that energy is in the visible range, then only we see certain flame color. The electrons, however, in the case of beryllium and magnesium, are too strongly bound to get excited by the flame. They are too strongly bound, and even it doesn't mean they will not be excited. Even they can be excited by putting even more and more light, usually not by the normal flame that we use in the laboratory, but the electrons can be excited. But even if they get back, that light will be not in the visible range, so we cannot perceive. So usually these electrons are so strongly bound because of the strong metallic character. They will not be easily, they will not easily be excited by the normal flame that we use in the laboratory. Thus, these elements do not impart any color to the flame. The flame test of calcium, strontium, barium is helpful in their detection in qualitative analysis and estimation by the flame photometry. This method is called flame photometry, or we also call flame test. So what we see, the calcium, it shows brick red color. It's a characteristic of calcium. The crimson red, so if you do not understand this color difference, it will be very difficult for you to characterize or to recognize this metal cations, but that is okay. That's not an issue. You can always have certain tests that is based on the chemical reactions which you can do, and to find out which metal it might be. So that it is crimson red, then you can say that the cation present in that salt, or maybe that particular metal that is there in the pure form, that is strontium. The barium, it shows apple green color, and the radium, it's a crimson red. Also, the crimson red, barium and strontium, they both those crimson red color. So they're, you can see here, and so they all have the, so it is very difficult to recognize or to differentiate between strontium and radium, because they show their color is the flame test. They show crimson red color. Similarly, so it will be difficult to differentiate between them based on the flame test only. So anyway, this flame test, these colors you should remember, because some colors sometimes questions are asked. So calcium, it's a brick red, strontium crimson red, barium apple green, and radium, it is crimson red, or red you can say simply. So hydration enthalpy, if you look at, so as we saw, have seen that this metal forms, usually they lost electrons very easily, and so they form divalent cation. These divalent cations, when they are in the water, they interact with the water molecules. Actually, they form these water molecules, 6 water molecules. They come and usually coordinates with this alkaline earth metals, particularly the magnesium, calcium, people have seen. So 6 water molecules, they coordinates very strongly through the covalent bonding. It has been seen between the metal cation and the water oxygen of the water molecule. So this heat of hydration of metal divalent metal cation of the alkaline earth metals decreases with an increase in ionic size. So what is important for us to understand is the trend in the hydration energy. So what do we do? So hydration energy usually decreases down the group. And why it is decreased down the group? Because we see that the metal cations are smaller in size if it is above in that particular group. And so, and their size increases down the group. Because of the increase in size, what do we see? We see the interaction with the water lone pair of water, or lone pair that is present on the oxygen atom of the water, that can interact with this divalent cation and the water dipole. On the other way, you can consider water has dipole. It's a negative dipole can interact with this cationic, and that interaction of the water negative pole of the water dipole will be decreasing as the ionic radius increases, because the distance between that dipole two charges will be increased, and because of that increased distance, this interaction decreases, and that is why the enthalpy of hydration also decreases down the group. And so beryllium, for beryllium it is highest, and for the barium it is least. And because of that, so beryllium, it will have more water molecules bound with the beryllium, and the more and more water molecules will be bound with the beryllium, so its mobility in the water will be decreased. So if more and more water molecules, or even the water molecules are more strongly bound with a particular metal cation, so its mobility decreases. Similar thing we have seen in the case of alkali metals as well. The mobility of lithium ion is least in water. So mobility, because how this mobility will happen, if you create certain potential gradient between that solution, their electrolyte solution. So what you will see, you'll see this cations will be moving towards one pole to the another pole. It will moving towards the negative electrode of that potential or negative potential side, and that mobility, then you can see what is the speed of that mobility, and that is what we consider the speed of movement in that electrolyte solution on creating certain potential difference is least for the beryllium, and it increases down the group because the hydration energy is decreased, and hydration energy is because of decrease in the hydration energy, least number of water molecules will be associated with the barium, and highest number will be the beryllium, and that trend is actually followed in this direction, or with decreases or moving down the group. So enthalpy of hydration decreases, and enthalpy of hydration decreases, so the ionic mobility also, so ionic mobility increases in the opposite direction, because enthalpy decreases, so the ionic mobility increases. The hydration enthalpy is opposite to that of the ionic mobility, and the hydration enthalpy is more, so ionic mobility will be least, because as you know, the more and more water molecules will be associated, so that entire thing, the hydrated cation will be heavy. So because it is a heavier size, heavier mass, its mobility will be least. And why mobility? Because if suppose there is one potential gradient or the electric field you are creating in that, providing electric field, in that electric field the force will be the charge on that cation into the electric magnitude of the electric field. So Q, and since charge on all the metal cations is same, so the same force they will experience. And if the same force they will be experiencing, so if the mass of certain hydrated cation will be least, so its acceleration on it will be maximum, because the force is same in all the cases, almost same. So the acceleration will be more, so it will be accelerated, and its mobility will be more. And thus in the case of beryllium, its hydrated cation is heaviest, and because of the heaviest, their mobility is least. Coming to the chemical properties of alkaline earth metals, the alkaline earth metals are less reactive than that of alkali metals. And why they are less reactive? Because we know their electropositive character is less than that of the alkali metals, because alkali metals, they need to lose only one electron, and they can do it very easily. And so their ionization potential, because of the higher, larger size, their atomic size, their ionization potential is also less in comparison to the alkaline earth metals. So the alkali metals are more reactive, although the alkaline earth metals are also very reactive, but they are less reactive than the alkali metals. And the reactivity of these alkali metals is also decreases down the group, as we have seen this trend in the case of alkali metals as well. So reactivity of alkaline earth metals decreases down the group, chemical reactivity, the same trend we have seen in the case of alkali metals as well. So this trend of hydration energy and the ionic mobility, we see also the same trend for the alkali metals in the group. So a standard reduction potential, if you look at the reducing properties, so what do we see there? In the case of alkali metals, we have seen the case of the lithium, there was exception. So lithium was highest, and then the other metals were coming. However, in the case of beryllium, we do not see exceptions. We see a general trend, the reduction potential, actually standard reduction potential, it decreases down the group. It means the reducing them will be difficult. So they will be better be behaving as a reducing agent. So they will be better be behaving as a reducing agent, and that we can very easily understand as well, because they are metals. They can provide electrons. They will not like to accept electrons. So they will provide electrons there, because the electrons are loosely bound. And so they will provide electrons, so they will reduce others and not oxidizes others. And this reducing tendency increases as we go down the group, and because the metallic character increases. Here in the case of lithium, we see exceptions. This was because the lithium is very smaller in size, and the reducing tendency doesn't depend only on the ionization potential, removing electrons, so electropositive character or the metallic character, but it also depends on the hydration energy, because whenever we are talking about the hydration reduction, usually we are talking about the reaction in the water. So in the case of lithium, we see hydration energy is quite high, and so the exceptions that we see in that case, the beryllium we do not see, although in the case of beryllium hydration energy we see it's also very high. However, the other issues is it is not only the hydration energy, the electron donation tendency or the electron losing tendency, it is also that all these metals are there. If you are talking about the pure metals, these metals are also, all the atoms are bound together through metallic bonding, and because of these metallic bondings, these atoms are associated with each other. So before removing one electron from one atom, you have to first break that lattice, the metallic lattice. And to break, in the case of beryllium, what we see, this beryllium, the metallic bonding is stronger, and so it also affects the overall reduction potential of beryllium. And so what happens in the case of beryllium, any metal, if you use as an electrode, so what happens, the first of all, that one atom has to go out from that metallic lattice, so the metallic bonding has to be broken. So metallic bond has broken. Now this metal is this atom is free, and now this atom will remove its electron. So that energy, we also need energy for removing one atom from the lattice. We require energy. Removing one electron from one metal atom will also require energy, and later on, once this electron is removed, so the metal will gain a cationic charge, and because then that will interact with the water molecules, the hydration energy, that energy is released. So there are three things that works in the case. So in the case of beryllium, what do we see? That because of a strong metallic bonding, we see that this trend is not changed. So all these metals possess tendency. So since the alkaline earth metals except beryllium tend to lost their electrons, so this is this would be LOSS. Their valence electrons readily, or the lose is also okay. So they act as a strong reducing agents and indicated by a standard reduction potential. So reduction potential, you can see standard reduction potential is decreasing. So all these metals possess tendency. A standard reduction potential decreasing means, as I explained earlier, again I am going to explain it further. The reduction potential decreasing means these metals, their tendency to get reduced is decreasing. So their tendency to oxidize others, reduce others, or oxidize by themselves will be increasing with the decrease in the reduction potential. So their oxidation potential will be increasing. Reduction potential decreasing, so oxidation potential will be increasing. Reduction potential is decreasing. So all these metals possess tendency to lose two electrons to give metal divalent metal ion, and are used as a reducing agent. So they are used as a reducing agent because they can easily provide electrons. So the reducing character increases from beryllium to barium, and this reducing character is increasing because their metallic character is increasing. However, these are less powerful reducing agents than those of their corresponding alkali metals. So if you compare them, their reducing property in comparison to the corresponding alkali metals of the same period, they are weaker reducing agent than the alkali metals, and this is because we know the alkali metals, they are more electropositive, their metallic character is more, their ionization potential is less. So beryllium having relatively a high reduction potential and thus does not liberate hydrogen from acid, so the higher reduction potential. So reduction potential, one way is to that if you look at the electrochemical series, reduction potential, there we compare this with the standard hydrogen electrode, and so the beryllium usually it doesn't liberate hydrogen from the acids. So the reducing nature of beryllium is due to large hydration energy associated, because beryllium, its ionic bond is very metallic bond is very stronger, and so its ionization potential is also very high, and we have seen its value is around 900 kilojoule per mole. So this is, and this value is there in the table, so 900 kilojoule per mole. So although this is very high in the case of beryllium, due to large hydration energy, hydration energy very high for the beryllium, with the small size of beryllium divalent cation, and relatively large value of atomization enthalpy of the metal. So large value of atomization energy is also required. Atomization energy is from the any crystal, whether it is metallic or any ionic crystal or any other, when the covalent crystals or the molecular crystal. There are different types of crystals. So you first, if you want to actually from the metallic or ionic crystal, you can directly get the ionization energy. If you just break the lattice, that energy is called atomization energy. Just break the lattice, you'll get the energy. What you remove all the atoms separately, this is called atomization energy. In the case of molecular crystals, usually happens the molecular crystals are formed by different molecules, covalent molecules, and these covalent molecules, they bond together by non-covalent interactions, and once you break that, a smaller energy required to break that lattice, and so once that is broken, then you need to provide certain energy to break all the covalent bonds that is there in a molecule, and that entire energy will be called the energy of atomization. So whatever the energy, if the molecule is there in the crystal form, so all the energy that you require to remove, to separate out all the atoms, that energy is called the atomization energy that you can consider in this form. So in the case of beryllium, the atomization energy will be also high because the metallic bonding in the case of beryllium is high. So the solution of this alkaline earth metals in liquid ammonia, as we see in the case of alkali metals, this alkaline earth metals also react with liquid ammonia. The alkali metals, they readily react with ammonia, and to form ammoniated cation and ammoniated electrons, and these ammoniated electrons are now available. They are paramagnetic, and so they show certain reducing property. So these things we have seen. Similar thing we also see for the alkaline earth metals as well. However, their reactivity with the ammonia is slightly lower than that of the alkaline, comparison to that of the alkali metals. And they also, alkali metals, they form deep blue color. This also form the deep blue color solutions. So the alkaline earth metals, when they react with the liquid ammonia, ammonia is usually a gas. Liquid ammonia means ammonia at high pressure and lower temperature. So ammonia, they form the ammoniated cation. So this metal, it removes 2 electrons. In the case of alkali metal, it removes only 1 electron. Here it will remove 2 electrons, and the metal cation will be there, and the like metal cation reacts with water molecules in the similar fashion. This metal cation will react with the ammonia molecule, because ammonia, nitrogen of the ammonia also contains 1 lone pair, and the water contains 2 lone pairs. So they also interact with the lone pair of ammonia, and so there will be bonding, and this is called ammoniated cation. And if you consider there could be many shells of that, so if you consider only first cell, in the first cell only 6 ammonia molecules will be there. In the second cell, you can also see hydrogen bonding will be there, and these kind of interactions that we see in the water and ammonia both. And the 2 electrons that will be there, those electrons will also be ammoniated. They will also be interacting with the ammonia, and those electrons will be interacting with the positive pole of ammonia. That is the hydrogen side they will interact with. So if you look this ammoniated electrons, so this electron will be interacting with the positive pole of ammonia. So hydrogen will be towards, if you look at the reality, if you can see, the hydrogens will be facing the electrons, and so it will have 1 electron. So 2 electrons are removed, and both the electrons will be ammoniated now. So this is ammoniated electrons. So because of this ammoniated electrons, this solution will also be paramagnetic, and because of that, it's so deep blue color, because they get excited and impart energy after coming back to the ground state into the visible region, the blue region. So it's deep blue in color. Paramagnetic, I have seen. It's a reducing property will also be there. It can reduce very easily in the liquid ammonia. It's a very reducing agent. This alkaline earth metals are also reducing agent in ammonia. So now the ammoniates, this is called ammoniates. Only first cell of ammonia molecules in the first cell are only considered. So 6 ammonia molecules are there. So it's an octahedral arrangement will be there. The metal will be sitting in middle, and 6 ammonia molecules will be coming from different corners at 90 degrees of each other in the octahedral fashion. So this is ammoniates or ammoniated cation. They can be recovered from these solutions. So one can recover these ammoniates from these solutions as well. So the oxides and hydroxides of this alkaline earth metals, if you look at, the beryllium and magnesium are kinetically inert to oxygen and water. Usually kinetically inert, it doesn't mean they will not react, their compounds are not thermodynamically stable. So even the oxides and hydroxides of beryllium and magnesium are thermally more stable, means energy will be released if the hydroxides of beryllium and magnesium are formed. However, every reaction that we know is associated with certain barrier, and that barrier we call the kinetically inert. If the barrier is very high because of certain reason, so that reaction will also not proceed at normal temperature until unless you heat it. And so what will happen? So that barrier is not surmountable at normal temperature or low temperature. So that reaction at the lower temperature, we call such reactions as kinetically inert, means that reaction would not happen at lower temperature. And so we call the beryllium and magnesium are kinetically inert towards oxygen and water molecules. And this inertness is because they form oxide and hydroxides at the upper layer very readily, and that oxides and hydroxides, they will be on the upper layer, and now they will prevent any other metal ions to react with the oxygen and the water molecules, and that way we get certain kinetic barrier. So to have that, to remove that, so you have to either heat so that these hydroxides and oxides that are on the surface of these metals, they get removed, or the atom, so all the atoms are there, they are atomized, so they will be liquid, or if they are in the gaseous state, they can easily react. So you can provide heat, and then they will also be reacting with that. So the kinetic barrier one can surpass. So the kinetic barrier usually one can surpass by providing heat as well. And there are, one can use catalyst to do certain reactions. So suppose if I use certain catalyst so that the hydroxide or oxide that is formed on the surface, that it can react with that oxides and hydroxides, so it will actually corrode that oxides continuously, remove that oxides and hydroxides layer from the metal surface, beryllium and magnesium surface. So now the new atom will be exposed to oxygen and water, so they will be reacting, and so one can do the same thing, or one can do the same reaction by providing heat. So what we say, the beryllium and magnesium are kinetically inert. However, other metals, they react with water and oxygen. So powdered, what we see, powdered beryllium burns brilliantly. So powder, if it is powdered, what does it mean? You have broken these crystals into very smaller pieces, and so that surface area will be increased. So if certain things are in the powdered form, so surface area will be increasing. So powdered beryllium burns brilliantly with oxygen, and it reacts on the ignition, and usually beryllium reacts with oxygen above 600 degrees centigrade, and that is the kinetic barrier. One can see the kinetic barrier is surpassed at higher temperature in air to give barium oxide, and also it also reacts with nitrogen to form barium nitride. So beryllium reacts with oxygen to form beryllium oxide, and beryllium also reacts with nitrogen to form beryllium nitride. Similarly, magnesium can also react with the oxygen and nitrogen of air to form magnesium oxide and magnesium nitride. And this, since magnesium is its electropositive character is more than that of the beryllium, so its reaction is faster than that of the beryllium, and so even the temperature we need to provide lesser temperature, lesser heat to happen this reaction. So calcium, strontium, and barium are readily attacked by air to form oxides. So these oxides, they other metals which are more electropositive, they react readily with the air to form oxide and nitride. So oxygen is there in the air, nitrogen is also there. Nitrogen is usually its inertness is there, so many things, nitrogen doesn't take part in reaction with the many of the reactions because it has triple bond. So nitrogen activation of the breaking nitrogen bond is much more difficult. So but these metals, they can react with the nitrogen as well and to form nitride. So magnesium and strontium form oxides. So if oxygen reaction with oxygen, if you see, so as we saw in the case of alkali metals, what we have seen, lithium usually form normal oxide, sodium forms peroxide, and other alkali metals, they form superoxide, the potassium, rubidium, cesium. However, in the case of alkaline earth metals, what we see, magnesium and strontium forms oxide, and calcium also forms, beryllium also forms oxide at 600 degrees centigrade, that we see here. So, but barium means Ba, it forms peroxide. It's MO2, it's a peroxide, because barium, its valency is +2, and peroxide also it's O2 2-. So this is peroxide. In the case of sodium, we have seen Na2O2, usually H2O2, Na2O2. So we have this thing in our mind that something is the form of M2O2 is peroxide. It is not. It's a MO2 is a peroxide in the case of the barium. So it's a BaO2, and it forms peroxide. Strontium also forms certain peroxide. It has been seen that the barium also forms superoxide to certain extent, but however, the peroxide is more stable for the barium in comparison to other oxides of normal oxide and the superoxides. The oxides of alkaline earth metals are basic, and that is why they are called alkaline earth metals, because they are basic. Their oxides are basic, but less basic. These oxides are less basic in comparison to the alkali metals, and this is why less basic, because their electropositive character is also less. However, beryllium oxide dissolves both in acids, and in the case of all these oxides are, what do we see? All these oxides are basic in nature. So basic in nature, they can react with the acids. But beryllium oxide is amphoteric in nature because it's lower metallic character. It is amphoteric in nature, and this oxide can react with both acid as well as base. And if it was only basic, then it would react only with the if it was basic, it will only react with acid in the case of other metals. However, since it is amphoteric, it has both acidic and basic character, so this one can react with the base as well. Other oxides of other metals of the alkaline earth metal groups do not react with the bases. However, barium oxide can react with the base alkali as well. So barium oxide, when reacts with the sodium hydroxide, which is a base alkali, it forms sodium berylate, and berylate is a BeO2 is an anion which we call berylate anion. So it is a berylate, and it is a sodium, so this is sodium berylate plus H2O, the water molecule is formed. And the barium oxide can also react with acid, as it also has a basic character. It is amphoteric, so it reacts with the HCl acid, and it forms BeCl2 plus water. It doesn't give hydrogen here, as we have seen earlier. Other metal, it gives water molecule here, BeCl2 usually. So the tendency of these metals to react with water increases with increase in the electropositive character from beryllium to radium, and even to can look at the barium, because radium is radioactive. So from beryllium to barium, and the electropositive character increases, so that reactivity with the water will also be increasing. So reaction of beryllium with water is not certain, so it's very slow, or almost it doesn't react, because of the formation of that I said earlier hydroxide layer on the surface. And magnesium reacts only with hot water, and while other metals react with cold water, and they react with, although they react with cold water, but their reactivity is lesser in comparison to the alkali metals, because alkali metals also react with the cold water, but their reactivity is higher. The faster they readily react, or more rapidly react, their reaction is quite explosive. And however, other alkaline earth metals like calcium and strontium, barium, they react with the cold water, but their reaction with the cold water is slow in comparison to alkali metals. The inertness of beryllium and magnesium towards water is due to the formation of protective thin layer of hydroxide on the surface of the metals. This is one thing you should remember. Sometimes questions are being some questions are being asked because of this thin layer, formation of this thin layer of hydroxide. And in the case of oxygen, when it reacts with air, it forms thin layer of oxide. So some inertness comes in the case of beryllium and magnesium. The basic nature of hydroxide increases from the beryllium and radon. So hydroxides are also basic in nature. They are alkaline actually, but this basic nature increases as we go down the group, because of the increase in metallic character. Not only the metallic character, there is one thing that one can more logically correlate it with is there is a magnesium with the metal and oxygen bond, and metal oxygen bond, because it is MOH twice, and OH hydroxide ion and the metal ion is there, and if the metal is smaller in size, it has two positive character, so its interaction with the oxygen will be more, because its metal polarizing power will be more, and more electron density will be shifted towards the metal, and so metal oxygen bond will be stronger, and since the metal oxygen bond will be stronger, so the breaking that MOH bond to release OH minus ions into the solution will be difficult. And so what happens, so it is because the increase in ionic radius down the group which results in decreasing strength of MO bond. So MO bond in MOH twice, magnesium metal hydroxide of alkaline earth metals, to show more dissociation of hydroxides and greater basic character. But as we go down the group, the ionic radius increases because of that polarizing power decreases, and the polarizing power decreases means the metal and oxygen bond becomes weaker, and metal oxygen bond becomes weaker, and so removing MOH bond means, or removing hydroxyl ions into the solution will be easier, and so the basic characters of alkaline earth metal hydroxides increases as you go down the group, and the reason is already mentioned here. The solubility of hydroxides of alkaline earth metals increases from beryllium to barium, and if you look at the solubility, it also increases from beryllium to barium, and this is one thing, the hydroxides will be removed, and there will be cation and anion, they will be separated out, and once they will be separated out, then the solubility will be increased because the crystal is very easily broken. So cations and anions are separated, the solubility is also increasing down the group, means the solubility of these hydroxides. Beryllium hydroxide and magnesium hydroxides are almost insoluble. So these two hydroxides are almost insoluble in water, so their alkaline nature is very weak. Although they are alkaline, but they are very weakly alkaline. However, if you look at the calcium hydroxide, which is also called lime water, this calcium hydroxide is sparingly soluble in water, whereas strontium hydroxides and barium hydroxide is also called baryta water. So baryta water and the lime water, if you look at the strontium hydroxide and barium hydroxides, they are more soluble, they are readily soluble in water. The calcium hydroxide, which is called the lime water, solubility is sparingly soluble in water. The beryllium hydroxide and magnesium hydroxides are almost insoluble in water. The aqueous solution of lime water or baryta water BaOH twice, are used in qualitative identification of the quantity. This is used in qualitative as well as quantitative estimation of carbon dioxide. Usually this is a confirmatory test for the carbonate anion. If the carbonate is there, if you heat it, what will happen? The carbonate will be broken into the carbon dioxide. It will give carbon dioxide, and there the carbon dioxide that is released, you can taste it. If you use calcium hydroxide, this is the lime water or the barium hydroxide, what happens? They will form precipitate calcium carbonate or barium carbonate. And this hydroxide will form carbonate, this forms white precipitate, and that test tube, that what you can see, the white precipitate is now forming. And once you can see this white precipitate is forming, it means the carbonate of this particular cation is being formed, and carbonate is being formed, means this there must be that kind of this cations are there. So these ions are there, and whatever, if you add more and more carbon dioxide, so adding additional carbon dioxide, what happens? This carbonate becomes bicarbonate, hydrogen carbonate, and so this hydrogen carbonate is again dissolved in water. So this hydrogen carbonate of calcium or barium are again dissolved in water, so this white precipitate will disappear. White precipitate is disappearing, it means what happens? This calcium or barium carbonate was formed, this white precipitate was nothing but white precipitate of calcium carbonate and barium carbonate. That is why adding more carbon dioxide, what happens? This turbidity of insoluble carbonates is dissolved because the bicarbonates are soluble in water. So on passing excess CO2, the white turbidity of insoluble carbonates dissolve to give a clear solution again due to the formation of soluble bicarbonates. And that is why if the calcium carbonate or the barium carbonate is there in your salt, then you can have this kind of confirmatory test to tell that what kind of carbonates are there, means what kind of salt might be there in the given salt, and that is salt analysis you might see go in the laboratory classes. The SO2 sulfur dioxide also gives white precipitate when it reacts with the lime or baryta water, and so the white precipitate calcium sulfide is formed. So this SO2, when you pass SO2 to the calcium hydroxide, and the SO2 is passed, it forms calcium sulfide, which is white, also white precipitate. If the barium sulfide is there, so if the barium hydroxide is there, it will also react with sulfur dioxide, SO2 gas, and it will also form barium sulfide, which is also a white precipitate. So these are some tests that one can go for the hydroxides for the can do using hydroxides of alkali metals. Here I'll stop.